So it's like, I grew up Jewish. I was bat mitzvah.
It's super important that we respond to this video of a has-been comedian from the 1980s. Her name is Sarah Bernard, and she's talking to Bill Maher about anti-Semitism. Because if we don't address this, we don't know what's going to be. The whole universe can fall apart. Because things are going really well until now.
I went to Hebrew school. I did the whole thing. You know, I like being Jewish, and I go to Shabbat. I do my thing.
She grew up Jewish. Secular American Judaism is so lame. It's lame. It's nothing. I went to synagogue. She goes maybe once or twice a year. But Jews are interesting when it comes to Judaism because the less Jewish they are, I said this in another video, reference here. Jews, the less Jewish, the less involved they are with Judaism, the more complicated it becomes. The more traditional, the more involved a Jew is with Judaism, the more simple it becomes. So over here, it's like, I grew up Jewish and I love Judaism. Once a year, I go to synagogue, lame conservative rabbi thing, and I like coming in and saying, Shana Tova. Your Judaism is useless and worthless because you're a secular American Jew, and that's what your life is about.
But everybody's suddenly like, I'm Jewish and I'm being, I don't feel persecuted.
She's actually making a good point. Jews have enjoyed anti-Semitism. Why? Because if you're actually not threatened, sitting in Brooklyn or in your fat house in Florida or California, and you know there's no issue with physical threats to your life because you're Jewish, basically there is no physical threats, then after you're comfortable, next generation Americans that come, they're living large in America, they're comfortable, but they have this like thing, oh wow, we're Jewish, and I mean, their Judaism is meaningless to them, so they have to come up with some new things. And the new things that they come up with is anti-Semitism. We can feel cool, we can feel special. And there is an ego thing involved with it. Okay, listen, nobody's perfect. That's what's been happening.
Yeah.
Well, not persecuted perhaps, but there is an anti-Semitism afoot in this country that we haven't had in a very long time.
Bill Maher interjects, truthfully. Usually anti-Semitism historically came from the government. Now it's not coming really, it's coming from the far left, it's coming from pro-Palestinians, pro-Hamas people, pro-Hamas Muslims, and it's coming from the far left. It's not an actual threat, but it's a cooking of a threat. And it's becoming louder and louder. And the college campuses has really got people worried because if it's like on the street, then you could say, okay, it's just a few people on the street. But if it's a college campus, it's an institution. And it's not just students, it's professors. And it's not just pro-Palestinian, it's anti-Semitic overtly or leaning on it. It's angry, it's hateful, it turned into violence. Now, not all of them were students, but it happened on college campus. So it happened in an institution. So if it happens again, so people march on the street, because listen, they live downtown, they don't have great lives, they're brainwashed into being anti-Semitic. A lot of them far left, you could say whatever, they became anti-Semites, you know. But when a college campus goes aflame, then it's like, what the hell is going on here? And it also shows a little bit on the future. It shows on the future because unfortunately these people are going to work in many different sectors.
And I never thought I'd see the day.
I tell you where it comes from. It comes from the right wing, the extreme.
Yeah, she forgot to update her life from okay, I'll tell you where it comes from. It's like she's literally representing a whole generation of people who have Trump derangement syndrome, and they literally haven't updated their life since 1946. FDR. So the Jews fell in love with FDR. Why? FDR was a socialist. FDR was, well, more of a leftist, and he was pro-unions. And the Jews helped start the unions because they can't help themselves, but they fight for the rights of others. And they helped start the unions in the 1880s, 1890s, early 1900s. FDR became the darling of the Jews. But that's her grandmother's generation. Then came the 1960s, and we fought for the African-American civil rights, and they responded with anti-Semitism. Then there was gay rights started in the 70s and 80s, and Jews were behind that as well. And then, what else? And then basically Jews have always been involved with these fighting for rights for other people. Okay, so the problem is, though, that throughout the years, about 10, 20 years ago, the far left became woke, and it became hateful, essentially. A liberal used to say, I may disagree with you, but I'll die for your right to say it, right? The New Age ones don't believe. Once the far left becomes powerful, once these people when you're fighting for other people's rights, you have to be very careful. You have to be a cuntist, okay? You have to mean it with extreme meaningness. You have to mean it with extreme truthfulness if you want to fight for someone else's rights. If you're fighting for someone else's rights, but you have slight ego involved or major ego involved, in the case today, a lot of people, it's nasty, disgusting ego, like male feminists. They're the most disgusting people. Why? Because they don't care about women's rights. They just want to keep everyone else down and keep themselves on the top, so they become feminists in a passive aggressive way, not even in an overt way. So when you fight for someone else's rights, you have to be very, very careful about your kavana, of why you're doing it. And because you can quickly get into a lot of trouble if you're fighting for other people's rights. You can get into ego, you can become a dictator. It becomes terrible, like it became now. The far left got hateful. It got hateful towards, well, straight people, white people, and men. And, well, specifically vulnerable men. And then what happened? And then during the summer 2020, there was violence, which people like me, I did not speak. Asian people started getting attacked. After Asian people started getting attacked, now 3 years later, instead of who's the enemy, the white person, America, the white person, capitalism, and now it's Israel and the Jew. Israel and the Jew. So the far left is much more insidious. They're much more scary. Now, the right wing, the conservative party, the right wing in America, the Republican Party in America, disavowed themselves from anti-Semites. Definitely till Trump, he disavowed himself totally from all the anti-Semites. In the left, the Democratic Party, the far left, which are the anti-Israel, anti-Semites, they're the fire of the Democratic Party in some ways. They definitely never disavowed them. And they never disavowed. Did anyone ever come out during the Me Too movement and say this is just hatred against men, this is not going to end well? Well, now you have women all the time complaining men are no longer approaching them, and which is a terrible thing. I could say, see, I told you so, haha, but what does that benefit from anyone? The fact that men and women are not talking to each other is terrible. It's terribly emotional pain for people. Most of the people we know now that are single, never going to be married, never going to have kids, just people are not getting together. That is a terrible recipe. It's a recipe for a disaster in general for society, but it's also a recipe for society collapsing. Maybe not now, 10, 20, 30 years from now. American society collapse, we're in big, big, big trouble. You need America for the world to be a more peaceful place, despite all the crap that America did. Despite all the crap that it did, it actually keeps the world in a safer place. In order to continue a country, you need to have per couple at least 1.8 or 2.3 per child. And people are not getting married, they're not getting together. You're going to have an inverse in society, and then it's a collapse in society. And with all the other issues that are happening, it's going to be, unless something changes technologically, it's going to be a problem. What's my point? I don't remember my point. What's my point? Oh, no one on the left spoke up about these things because they were afraid. They were afraid to be canceled. It's a very scary mob when it comes to leftism. So let's go back and watch some.
Right, the extreme.
No, it doesn't.
You think it's left. You think it's from the left.
Well, there is anti-Semitism on both sides. The right wing has the Jews will not replace us nonsense. Right. The left wing is even worse.
What?
That is coming down from elite colleges who see everything only through a racial lens.
Yeah, it comes from the right wing because my grandmother said, like, update your thing. I mean, why am I attacking her? She's just a has-been comedian. At least she was a comedian. I'm a non-been comedian. She's a has-been comedian. So, gotta respect that. But it's like Netscape. She forgot to update the application over here. The right wing, that's anti-Semitic. Like, no, it's your party. Your party. The problem is on the side and replace Judaism with leftism, with progressivism. Therefore, they're going to, just like anyone would protect their religion and defend their religion, sometimes to death, sometimes they'll just defend their religion because it's their religion. Same thing as Jews with leftism. They'll defend it. They'll become very, and then that's where they have Trump derangement syndrome also, whatever, a lot of them do. Anyway, Bill Maher says something very interesting. Bill Maher's a smart guy. He's like, the right says the Jews will not replace us. The left says that the Jews are, the Jews are a different race.
They are stupid. They don't know history. They think everything is about colonizers and racists and how awful America is. And America has done some bad things, but to drag Israel into this as the stand-in for every bad thing white people ever did, this is not any more complicated to most of these college kids than the Palestinians are brown and poor, and the Israelis are rich and white.
So it's an issue of race, which is something you can never get out of. This whole new it's a new translation. I saw somewhere, I think Jordan Peterson spoke about it, like the communists, they make a new language, or dictators make a new language. They're totally using a new language. Colonizers became a new thing. I don't think any of these wacko moron people care about colonizing. They don't know nothing about it. They're told colonizing good, colonizing bad. The truth of the matter is, I don't know how susceptible I personally would have been if I was involved in such a group. I don't know. I question that. It's good to talk about that open on the internet. because people ultimately are susceptible to people around them. There has been times though in my life that I fought against the crowd, majorly like against feminism. I've been saying that for years that feminism is nothing but toxic, nothing but destroying society, and it really is. Feminism is an insidious, vicious, vicious energy that it's, I guess you can say it's feminine in nature because it doesn't hit you hard, but it does, but also basically shames you for existing. It's a terrible thing. And men stopped approaching women. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. I could see I told you so, but this is done. Society's done. It's over. It's really sad. And there's so many lonely people out there. Why? When you shame someone for approaching another person, when you shame someone for doing something wrong, or when you shame men, you shame someone just for existing, you're going to have terrible repercussions. You're going to have really, really bad repercussions if you do that to someone and you do that to a group of people. And a lot of men just checked out of society. And we don't see the repercussions yet of it, but it's going to be that way in the future. It's very unfortunate. And the thing though is basically what it comes out to is women do not need men for relationships. They need men to run the world, to, have the systems running and all that stuff. They don't need men for relationships, so therefore they just choose to be single. And men, unfortunately, do need women for relationships. But this is staring into the abyss of what's going to be the fall of American society. It's just it's unfortunate. It really, really is. It's terribly sad. There's a lot of loneliness, a lot of mental health issues and stuff like that. And at this point, if you ask someone in Jerusalem, what could you do? They'll say pray. But because there's no real. It's like you already brainwashed a whole generation. You're already brainwashed. It's just done. It's just done. Now America is, you're living on, you have a person has $1,000. They pay for a hotel room for $1,000, but the next day they're homeless. That's what American society is right now.
Even though half of them are not rich and certainly not not white and certainly not half rich.
Suddenly everybody's discovered their Judaism. It's like, I grew up Jewish. I was